Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy today to have with me the amazing Sonia Barret. We're going to speak about whatever comes up, but there is some sort of guidelines that I was interested in exploring with her because um, I'm really amazed sometimes by by the metaphors you use, the kind of language you use to express your ideas. It's really interesting. I personally have a big connection with like Vedanta and Vedic sort of philosophies and metaphysics, and your stuff really resonates with me like another way of expressing the same ideas. Um,
Right.
so, hello, Sonia. How are you?
Oh, hello. Good to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's a great honor.
Huh?
It's a great honor.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm always honored when other people think it's an honor to have me on. So
Cool.
we're both honored.
Yeah, it's nice we found each other.
Yes.
So,
Mm,
Sonia, I'm really interested in particular into one of your ideas that you use the term the human game to
mhm.
I think it's kind of to signify our human life, let's say, or the dynamics of how we are living life. And
Mhm.
yeah, would you tell us a little bit about that and maybe a little bit about your own story and how you came to these ideas?
Um, well, yeah, I've been using the term human game, I guess, for a long time, and it was simply because I got to a point where I started to realize that it's really a gigantic game experience. And that's before all the virtual stuff became popular. So anyway, but it's been a while since I've been looking at it that way. And the reason why I came to that conclusion, I was on my own search, my own quest, and really trying to understand, what is this thing we call life? And I think that you have to go there in that really deep question and not really take things just at face value. So for me, I was going through a challenging time in my life, and I used that moment of those challenging times to question all that I had experienced up until that point, and all the struggles, all that I was going through. And I said to myself, what is this thing that we call life? What is this that we refer to as life? Because one of the things that you recognize is how everybody seemed to just go about their routine days, their
Mhm.
routine life, um, day after day after day. We all experience that, where day after day you could just get up and you start the routine all over again. So, for some people, they question it very little, and for some people, they get caught in also a routine or protocol, religious protocols, and
Mm.
that for them it gives them a sense of doing something. And for me, I needed more than that, because as a child I did grow up in the church. I had a church background. But it was that moment, and that I've always had that questioning moment, let me say. So that's not new. What became new was my diving into that question, and was relentless at asking that question. And the more relentless I got, I had to I had to teach myself how to meditate. So those things, is I didn't know how to meditate, and I didn't know anything about metaphysics,
Mm.
or any of that. The only thing I knew was that something's just not right. That's the one thing I knew, is that from childhood, is that something just
Mm.
seems a little off. And doesn't anybody else notice that this is really weird? Like, where are we? So it was always kind of like that. Like, what is this? Where is this place we call here? And as those questions got deeper, I did set aside a couple of books I read. I had read Shirley MacLaine, Out on a Limb, Dancing in the Light. This is like back in like 1992, 93. I read Masters of the Far East, the back then. And I decided to go through the Bible a little bit again. I'm like, well, what did I miss? So then I put it all away, and I just knew that there was a way for me to tap into um, a space that was beyond this. I just knew that. I don't know how, but I just knew it, and that's what I set out to do. Now, with not knowing how to meditate, I sit in the lotus position every day and hoping for something to happen until one day, something happens. But anyway, so that was kind of that initial point of my journey. And I felt like a child in a candy store. The more I started to realize that um, whatever this is was opening up to me, and then I look back, and it's not that it was opening up to me, it was that my filters, the filters of the programming, the social programming, and the general programming, was slowly being, layers were coming
Mhm.
off. And it was just allowing me to see more. And that's kind of basically what happened. So, okay, so I'll just fast forward now, because that's a whole other story. But fast forward, so over time, over a few, years, I started to realize, because I stayed to myself with this for like 10 years. I mean, I was relentless with the meditation, and I was mainly on my own. I would meet maybe a couple of people here or there, but I would always want more. I would always want to go further, and they would be like right where they are. They're like, oh yeah, well, I'm a Wiccan, I'm a this, and then they would stay there. I would investigate what they have, but I got to keep moving. I'm like, okay, that's just another piece. I got to keep going. So eventually I started to realize this feels like like it's a game. Like
Mhm.
human beings are playing this game of this thing that we are calling life or being alive. And then when you start to look at our world and the things that we create, and how game was such an important factor throughout the ages. Humans have played all sorts of different kinds of games. And so you start to realize that we've got to be mimicking the bigger thing. So that's what it was. You start to realize, wow, we're copying this bigger thing. This is why we like ball games and just board games, any kind of game. We like games. The other thing with the idea of games, what will make this even make more sense, or some people who will get serious on me and go, this is not a game, and it's like, well, yeah, it is when you look at the even the science of it, and when you talk about the your interest in the Vedic um data, those Vedic tools, the information that they share, the more you open your eyes to even what these different ancient cultures, what they realize, these spiritual practices, like even true ancient, like Buddhism, all of this, the Taoist, all these things, physics. You start to realize that, well, if this is all just a chimera, it's an illusion, it's a paradox. Things are real, but they're not, they're both. The more you start to understand that, the more you have to then put it in creation. In its vastness is obviously enjoying itself by pretending to be things that yet are not things. It pretends to be fragmented. It pretends to be a human being, a tree, a rock, a chair, every single thing. You start to recognize this amazing imagination of this undefinable force that is um the fuel and the substance of all things, that in order for that which cannot be defined to express itself, um, and to bring its imagination to life, then this is the game it plays. I'm real, I'm not. It plays the game of paradox. And science has seen that over the years. Science is noticing that whole idea of an illusion, and what's real. So I say real is realm of focus. That's what I started to realize when I wrote it in the book some years back. It's like, well, what is real? Because people go, well, that's not real. But real becomes what realm of focus, whatever you're focused on, and you begin to have some sort of interchange with it or relationship with it, that in that moment is what's real for you. And so for me, it was like, wow, real, realm, and reality, all offshoots of the same thing. Real is based on the realm of focus. The realm is this particular space that you happen to have your consciousness locked in on. That's the realm of focus. And then reality, then that becomes reality for you, and that's the same word in there, and that's what becomes real. And so when you're not focused on that, is anything there? So you tell me, is that not a game? Is that not a game of hide and seek from myself? Because we're creation. We are the fabric of the very thing that we are looking for. People are looking for God. They're looking for a core source. Well, you are that core source. You are it, showing up in all these many different forms. And that's when I really cemented that idea. I was like, wow, this is a fascinating game. So I hope that answers that part of the question.
That was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. There was a whole lot in there. I was taking notes, very, very attentive, because, and especially in this final part, the idea of the focus. It's something that I've been I've been working with. Explaining it to myself, how where you place your focus is what's real for you,
Mm-hmm.
not just in the material world, but
Mm-hmm.
also in your internal emotional and mental world, and all the
Right.
beliefs, right? uh, for me, I reached, or I received that idea of where is your focus. Kind of, it came to me kind of like a question, and like, how long ago, like almost 10 or even more years ago, it came like that, in the form of a question. And for me it was something interesting, like, oh yeah, right, interesting. Oh, look, yeah, the focus, whatever. But it
Yeah.
never sank very deep, yeah, until
Same.
very recently, maybe a couple years ago, I've
It
been,
takes time, isn't it? Sometimes you
yeah.
think you got it, but then there's like so many deeper layers to every truth. That's
Mhm.
why truth is always evolving. So it's not that when you go, well, oh, what I knew before wasn't true. No, that's just where you were.
Mm,
And then truth is always unveiling, as you unveil, as we allow ourselves.
right.
But yes, that focus, that is so very important. What is it that you're focused on? It could be a belief, it could be a thought, a concept, an idea. Wherever you lock in on, you stabilize, whether it be in the
Right.
physical, those particles, you stabilize it somehow. And it is adhering to and responding to your desire to interact with that idea. So it materializes
Mm,
in form or in emotions. It, in the end, it is you that's doing the magic, the magician to produce. And we see that in 3D, and everybody can relate to this with buildings and street signs. I cannot tell you how many times I may drive by a place, and suddenly I drive by it another time and there's like a whole new building. I'm like, I drive by here all the time. And I've talked to other people. I was like, did you see that? No, nobody saw when the building went up. Now, what, was the building always there? Were we just not needing the building to be in our library, I like to call it, of data, of content, of
mm,
information, of patterns, that are in our reality. Each of us, we have our own reality library. But so you look at that, or streets, somebody would say turn down Main Street off of, whatever, Santa Monica Boulevard, and you go, I've never seen that street. And then suddenly it's time that now you need that street, so now suddenly it's there, and you're like, I've driven by here so many times. I've never noticed that street. So we are seeing how we are playing a game with ourselves, in our, with our minds, with our focus, with what the brain filters, with what the brain allows us to see, based on what we can accept as a potential, as a possibility. It's all based on so much. It's all based on us and where our focus is placed in that moment. That's where we're hanging out, is our focus point.
exactly. Like people sometimes they will get into uh, eternal arguments
Oh,
of philosophical of, oh, but does it exist when I'm not looking and whatever. The important thing is that if you're not looking, it's not existing for you. If you're not
yeah.
focused on it in some way with one of your five senses or one of your other more subtle senses,
Mm-hmm.
it's irrelevant for your experience. So kind of like in a 3D game, it won't be
Mm-hmm.
loading for you because it doesn't really matter until at
Right.
some point, for some reason, it's needed for the plot of the story that you're telling yourself or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't come up. And this thing that you were saying, how truth gets different levels or shows, kind of like the skin of an onion, many
Mm-hmm.
layers. As you are evolving your consciousness, evolving your your self-awareness, doing some self-development, learning about your childhood wounds, um, doing doing the and taking sorry taking the steps to create the life that you want. As you start doing all of that, truth becomes
It
more
expands.
profound. It
That's
expands.
right.
Exactly, you go deeper and you learn, like the case of the focus of the attention. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it, like, I received it, it was in a psychedelic trip. The
Mm-hmm.
idea just dropped into my mind at a moment, and it was very interesting at the time, like playing with the focus and looking at things and recognizing
Mm-hmm.
that where my focus was is where my reality was, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
a basic and obvious thing to say. Like, yeah, of course, where
Yeah.
your focus is where your focus is, so that's your reality, of course. But when you start evolving internally, you start looking at the same uh, 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 truths that you found,
Mm-hmm.
and you see, oh wow,
New layers.
how
New
profound
levels
this
to it.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
It's
said,
just incredible.
you talked about meditation and metaphysics. um, I understand, so that, oh, and you said that during meditation something happened.
Yeah, for me at the time, when I was attempting to meditate and not knowing what that meant, again, coming from a church background as a child, you just know people kneel down and they pray. So I didn't really, and I didn't know anybody who was in the at the time, more what they call new age or metaphysics. I didn't know anybody at all. So I had actually just gone to into my first metaphysical store. Too, I gone
Mm,
to a metaphysical store because now I'm like looking around. But yeah, for me, it was that defining day when I sat and suddenly I just started to breathe, differently. My breath wanted to be processed in a deeper way, and then my hands started to move, and then now I look back, whenever I explain that story, give that story, I like to explain to people, so in a way, so that we don't take everything and put it into these super mystical pockets. I say my hand is moving. And when I look back, I understand this more. My hand started to move, I think, simply because what I was experiencing, the vibration was so intense. Because, remember, your brain is your interface and it filters. So my desire to know more somehow, I believe, started to shift that that connection in my brain somehow to allow me to experience more. Well, the energies for that, because everything, things outside of our space right here, everything measures a different frequency, and all realms, obviously all spaces have their own frequency, their own measurement, their own vibration. And your body, when it's used to operating in certain fields, in certain level of frequency. So I think the more we step out, which is why, again, you don't walk through walls so easily, because we tend to be vibrating at the same rate of speed as everything around us. So you can't walk through the wall, you have to actually be vibrating at a higher rate of speed to go through the wall, because then the wall's rate of speed is lower than the speed that you're moving through. So anyway,
And of
based
your
on,
mind,
pardon me,
and of your mind and your
and of
beliefs.
your, yes,
Mm.
yeah, absolutely. So that's, to me, what was happening is I was shifting outside of my, what was my normal human space program. And my body, it was just, I think, a lot to contain for my body. It was
Mm.
like, wow, all of this suddenly this information is there. I'm leaving the standard program, right? Like a computer game. I'm leaving the standard program, and now my brain is, I'm going into this other space, and my body is probably like, wow. So I think my hands, when I look back, my hands moving, I think, was a way for me to process that,
Yeah.
like the energy flowing through you. And years later, I went to this fair, let me say, and I happened to see these people that were, they were giving away copies of some kind of disc for, as a matter of fact, it was Falun Gong. I'd never heard of Falun Gong before, but anyway, they were showing a video, and I stepped over to look at the video because I noticed that in the video this
Mm.
person was doing exactly what I was doing. And I was like, wow. So I stopped and I talked to them. I think they were from China at the, yeah. And so I talked to them, and they were telling me that they gave me a name. They said there's a name that we have for people like that, people who just naturally, are able to do that. And that's what they were saying. Not that many people are able to just do that. So anyway, so that was very interesting how that came about. But there is actually a name for people who are able to do whatever that was that I was doing. It was happening with my hands. And so for me, like in this conversation that we're having, for me, the beauty of those experiences that I had on my own, it has allowed me to be able to say to other people that it's all there for the asking. You can do this. This is not where it's okay, well, some people, oh well, that's just Sonia.
Mm.
It's not that. It's how committed are you, how curious are you, how interested are you, how much do you want to be able to step away from your little 3D game to dive in deeper, or to step away from all of our problems, our issues and challenges, which always completely distracts us and keep us locked in and focused on just this narrow 3D version of reality. And so for me, even though I was going through difficult times, having just gotten divorced or going through a divorce with two children, it was a difficult time financially. It was just a difficult time, but it was just pulling me. It was just pulling me to go ahead and to see the bigger picture. And what I've learned over the years is that the more we can get into seeing the bigger picture is really where our freedom is from this programming that we have of reality and our struggles and our limitations, more than anything our limitations. And the more that we can do that, is actually our freedom is a little bit beyond our locking in into this limited perception of reality. It's all there, but we have to gradually step beyond it. And to step beyond it is a lot of programs that we're coming up against. That's why we all find such difficulty in really anchoring or moving into these more expansive places, because life's challenges, and in our 3D world, since we no longer just live outside, we're not hunting for our food and all of that. We're dealing with bills, things that we've created as part of our game, because we wanted to come in and experience being human to like the most limited experience possible. And trying to figure out paying a bill is seriously one of the most limiting. How are you going to pay your rent is one of the most limiting experiences. And let me tell you, I have had them all.
Mm.
How to pay my utility bill, how to pay my rent, how
It's
to am
kind
I
of
going to buy food.
like solving a problem with a problem.
Yeah, you're solving these problems with the same set of
Yeah.
limitations that you use to create the problem in the first place.
Yeah,
And then it's all what realm of focus. It becomes
exactly.
your focus. And the more that life, that which is what I learned, the more my struggles were my focus, was the more my struggles were my focus.
Mm,
Because your brain also, again, looks for patterns. It looks for patterns. And when it's a repeat of the same thing, the same information, same belief
mm,
system, it just keeps giving you more of that. It's a genie's lamp. You rub it and you just keep getting more of the same thing. So yeah, after many years, I finally started to learn. After a little while, I started to realize, oh, okay, you're in survival mode all the
mm,
time. You have to interrupt that survival program. Otherwise, you're stuck in it all day long.
Yeah, that's correct. How important to do new things, or even within the maelstrom, to like have the courage and the faith of going outside and just doing one different thing to like move the
Yes.
energy around. But also, like you were saying, with all these add-ons we've installed into the game, we've been
Mm-hmm.
trying to fix a problem with a solution that turns out to be another problem that it's fixing. and
Mm-hmm.
and we are trying to understand now all this idea of energy, and one of the ideas that I had the other day, and you just mentioned it, is the thing about frequency. So I it's kind of like the other day I received this other piece of my jigsaw within my mind to understand everything. uh,
Right.
so one was the focus thing, and the other
Mm-hmm.
day it was that frequency, in it's being talked about more and more, and people talk about frequency, vibration, energy, and I have like an intuitive grasp on the idea, and I kind of
Mm-hmm.
have been working with it intuitively. But the other day, I got this also very obvious connection that the frequency is the characteristic, or the description, or the adjective that you are embodying. So if you are always looking at your problems, worrying about your problems, then you're a worrier. Then you will be surrounded by everybody else and every other environment that allows you to be a warrior, right? So
That's right.
whatever you're focusing in brings that to you.
Well, those are the, I always say, those are the laws that you're creating for yourself. Those are the instructions that you're creating for yourself. I also like to say those are the terms and conditions that you check off for yourself. And, when we say, man, all I do is struggle, or people will say
mm,
so many different things like that. No matter what I do, I can't get ahead. I
mm,
mean, those are actually laws that we create for ourselves, and
right.
that
Mm,
part of us, its job is to provide us with what the instructions that we put out. So we don't really hear ourselves. Then you start to realize, well, wait a second, but if I'm saying that all I ever do is struggle, then that means that that's all I can ever do is struggle, because that's the law that I've created.
mm,
So we create these laws in our personal reality, um, and we just don't notice. So yes, or people that say, "Oh yeah, just paycheck to paycheck. That's what
mm.
I do." Or I'm fine as long as my bills are paid. I don't care about anything else.
Or as long
Well,
as I have my 15 days of holidays at the end of the year.
yeah, that's it. But even when you say, as long as my bills are paid, I don't really care about, anything else. That
Mm,
means that a lot of times a person will have just enough to pay their bills, because that's what you said. That's the law you created. Let me,
mm,
as long as I have enough to pay my bills, okay, my bills are paid,
mm,
and I don't have much left over to do anything else. Well, first of all, you've never indicated that you really want to do anything
mhm,
else, because your reality is, your story is written to
mm,
just make sure that you pay your bills. And it's some of it is just so simple. It's like you just have to hear yourself. And I had to hear many of the things that I was saying or doing, and even without the level of knowledge that I have now, I remember waking up to realizing, like, wait a second, you're caught in a loop. That's why you always have a problem every time it's time to pay
mm,
your rent. You're caught in this loop. And I started to see that. I was like, wow, that's why I end up with this problem, because now it's a pattern in my reality that my mind, my brain is delivering. This is my blueprint. My blueprint is, I will always have a problem paying my rent. That's my blueprint. I will always
mm,
have a problem paying my rent. My blueprint is, I will only have enough left over after I get my check, just to for transportation.
mm,
Whatever it is, it's like you have to hear what you're saying, because it's your game. It's your personal game of being a human being. You start getting it, you start to see why it's a game. And then you start to play around more with experimenting on, if I change this thought, if I tweak this a little bit over here. And then you have to be patient
mhm,
and repetitious, just like you were repetitious with
mm,
incorporating those rules. For whatever reason, it's easier for us to incorporate things that imprison us. But when it comes to things that will free us, or concepts that will free us, we don't like to stick with it. We want to boomerang back to what we're
mhm,
comfortable with, which is the struggle. So now you have to create a new habit that says, this is the change I'm making.
mhm,
Then now suddenly you're able to pay your rent. You stick it out, because sometimes that's what it is. It's like, doesn't matter what it looks like, I know. And I had to get to that place. It's like, no matter what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to take the same old
mhm,
options, to survival options, let me just say, to figure out paying my rent. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to step back, and I'm going to know that, come what may, I don't care how close I get to the edge, there is no edge.
mm,
I'm actually, it's going to happen. I'm going to be okay. So that's what I had to do with each thing, is to keep changing that pattern, until eventually I changed this pattern and that pattern. And sometimes it's few years later, you look back and you're like, wow, my life is completely different than it
mhm,
was, a year ago or 5 years ago. And that's what we have to do. New habits. Got to,
mm,
you're reprogramming, just like you program a computer. You have to reprogram this whole sensory system, is what's tied to this thing we call reality.
Yeah, thank you so much again for that. I was just thinking of going into installing new programs. I was going to ask you about that, but also while you were speaking, the metaphor or the image of like what do you call this? Precisely today, a few minutes ago, we have a gardener in the.
Hmm.
We have a small what do you call it? A patio in the front
Hmm.
with some grass and some plants. And just a few minutes ago, the gardener was mowing the lawn, yeah, and the image that came was that we are like what do you call it when you're gardening or landscaping or something like
Oh, you're
that?
talking when you're clipping, you're doing the clippers and cutting.
Exactly. you're
Yeah.
you're like getting everything,
Oh, pruning.
pruning
Yeah.
everything in
Yeah.
shape to have a
Yeah.
beautiful garden. And I guess that eventually those things continue to grow, but they continue to grow in a new way that
Yes.
they work together and they create a more beautiful garden, which would be our mind and in turn our experience because of our focus.
Good analogy.
Mm,
Yeah. That is true. And that's what it requires. Consistency. Consistency. And the more consistent we are and the more we begin to see things change in our lives, is the easier it is to to use that as a launching pad. Okay, well that changed. Okay, so I
mm,
can do this other thing, and we just keep going until it becomes our normal. And that's what we have to look at. We till we normalize our ability to more quickly change things in our reality. But we have to also be, be willing to be truthful with ourselves. That's, you have to be able to
mm,
take a truthful observation, not a judgment really, but an observation
mm.
of your life, how you live your life, how you think, what your belief systems are, what your fear is. If you're locked into social fear, if you're locked into the fear being produced by the media, you have to go ahead and observe that, and then take back your power by recognizing how you've basically given it away to those frequencies, and then start taking it back.
Yeah, for me, it was one of the first steps was not watching TV. That was very important for me. I haven't watched in, I mean, I don't own one in like 7 or 8 years or something
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
I now and then get some info because I go to other people's houses or whatever.
Right.
But um, the I lost my train of thought. So for me, it was yeah, watching stopping watching TV. Uh,
Mhm.
that was something. Oh, and another thing is that metaphor as well of when you look at your life and you make that analysis of where you're at, to
Mhm.
start turning that ship. It might take. You can imagine a very large ship. It might take a little while for it to turn
Right.
completely. So that's where the repetition that you also mentioned, and sticking to your habits, to your new habits, and showing up for yourself. You want to transform into something, into feeling better. So
Mhm.
there's as much work as you already put into whatever you're living now, and
Mhm.
intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or subconsciously,
Mhm.
whatever amount of practice and repetition you had with the wrong thing, let's start doing the same with better things, and things that expand the puzzle within your mind of how you can uh, and not only focusing on the how, because that's a kind of a trap maybe, but
Mhm.
yeah, start to expand your horizons, and to have more resources for you to continue exploring different aspects of your life, and increasing in everything that you can. For me, the thing with the just having enough money, I was stuck there for so long. Like uh, at one point I remember, wow, how amazing. I realized I always have what I need, but then I realized also, but just enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the abundance that I was actually craving, or that my
Mhm.
soul knew that I
You didn't give yourself permission to, yeah. Yeah. Like most
mm,
people, like most of us, everybody, we've all been there with not giving ourselves permission, which is a huge one. It's so huge because no matter what you know, you start understanding more. Because even though I was understanding more and I was moving, shifting, I still wasn't giving myself permission to really flow financially. That's taken like a lot of years because those programs are so deep. They're so
Mm.
deep and they are sabotaging programs and you don't notice that they're there. So even though sometimes you have a mediocre level of success with something, but you haven't given yourself permission to like be, you know, to be more. And believe me, I even in the last few years, I mean, I had to look at more and more of myself, but then also recognize the choices that I have made. But then when you recognize the choices that you've made, then you also end up looking at some of the fear that's been hidden behind the choices and the things that you tell yourself. I remember a while back when I needed to buy a new car, and I was saying to myself, I go, you know, I kept saying, you know, I just want to buy a car cash. I don't want to pay. I don't want to make monthly payments. I just want to buy it cash so I don't have to deal with the monthly payments, which is fine. But when I really really dialed in on myself, what I
Mm.
realized was that I had a fear
Mm.
that I might not be able to make the payments. Why is that? Because it happened to me before.
Mm.
So I was running that program like the computer with all the windows open and you got stuff, you know, in the back, Trojan horse in the background.
Right.
Um, I was running that, but I was telling myself something else,
Mm.
you know. And then I finally realized, I was like, wow, you don't really want a car payment because you're scared. You're scared. And when I realized that, then I came into a different space where I knew that I had to override that program. I had to override it with something else. So I did. Then I ended up buying a car with a car payment, and you know, writing that all the way through. It's like I needed to do a watch to wash that program out. It's like
Mm.
you were fine. And then, you know, later part, that's a whole other story too. When I did the money, I did this money transformation for myself. Then I went through a moment of you know, my car payment. That was actually close to the end of it, but I had put myself through this process. And so it was another level of learning for me what I was, you know, what I was feeling and what I was thinking, and then being able to let go and let that happen, let that process through, and then it was okay. Then I realized, wow, you're okay. So yeah, so now that's it's like that's changed in, you know, in me, in the sense of if I, you know, buy a car right now, it's not that you won't make, I know it's like you just start to know, okay, well, that is no longer that I'd be able to make my car payments, period.
Mm.
So the concern isn't there. So if I choose to go and buy a car cash, it will truly be because I could go buy a car cash and I just choose to buy a car cash.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the piece about self-awareness was so important because of course you're not going to get committed to paying the monthly payments for a private jet, for example,
Come
because
on now. What?
because maybe it's outside, uh, I don't know,
Good point.
maybe we should try and see.
Well, you know what?
We'll have a plane.
It doesn't work if your belief system, if the stuff running in
Uh,
the background
mm.
is, because that's what's dictating is the truth of what's running in the
Mm.
background. You don't believe that for a minute that you're going to be able to go buy a plane and you're going to be able to make the payments on. It's like you just don't believe that. So that's not going to happen. It's going to end up being a disaster. Now, it's more likely somebody that is more like, okay, you know, I'm going to make this happen. And a lot of times, you know, in certain situations, it's not necessarily the person strategizing on how to do it. It's more this knowing. It's more the knowing, that really allows conditions to come about,
Mm,
people to come into your life, situations to come about that will allow the desired outcome to happen. And that's really what I've learned, is how it things line up if you can step back from your fear and your doubt, because doubt is, well, like everything else, a frequency, and it interrupts things happening. And so your doubt has to play out. Your doubt has to find a way to show up a lot of times, so we can say, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have. I knew it wasn't going to work. We like when we can confirm it. It's like we
mm,
almost feel better, because now we don't have to wait for the disaster, because we already expected the disaster. Now we can move into what we love, which is now to fix the disaster. We love that. We love solving problems, and we love to come in and rescue ourselves
mm,
and sometimes other people. So to me, it's fast. It's fascinating to me every day. It's still fascinating to see how we're designed, and how we operate. And the more we can step back and we can see these things, is the easier our lives become, if we can tell ourselves the truth.
mm,
If we can do that and not go, oh no, I'm not in fear, no,
mm,
no, a lot of denial because of the ego.
mm,
We just can't handle that. We don't want to deal with it, so we tell ourselves lies. And the lies just sort of cover up what's there. It doesn't make it go, what's there really go away. It's a temporary covering, and then eventually it blows up, it comes off, because it's temporary. So those are all things I've learned from personal experience. Oh my
mm.
goodness.
Yeah, definitely super important to have to be truthful with oneself. And the thing is that we are so uh, for some reason we are so scared of feeling our feelings, of being present in the body when the anger or the sadness or the despair are flashing up. It feels so horrible, and in a way, I mean, with lots of compassion for myself and for everybody that's ever gone through anything like that, but we're kind of like children who haven't been trained to deal with their emotions. So when they come up, we just panic and we go into fear, into survival mode, right? um,
It's
so
uncomfortable. Yeah.
definitely, I think it's one of the hardest things that we have to overcome.
Mhm.
At least our generation, who wasn't very much taught. You know, we maybe you and I are different generations in another sense, but we are kind of the people before and more or less during the invention of the internet,
Yeah.
which has helped not only education but
It
every
has its
kind of
setbacks
knowledge.
too.
Mm,
Yeah, it's like there's information there, but at the same time, if you were around before the internet, or I like to say even before cell phones, there's a different kind of awareness, and that's there because you have to be a little bit more, to some degree, more connected. And there was less emergencies. I swear, with a
mm,
cell phone, there's always an emergency. Oh, I need to make a call. Oh my God, I need to
mm,
make a call. So we find that, because we all do it. I do it. It's like, oh, I'm driving. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. I need to call this person. Yet in the old
mm.
days, um, there was no, what do you call it? There was no call waiting.
Right.
There was none of that. It was, you either call, and if the person is on the phone, you're going to get a busy signal, or you can't call there's no cell phone, so you have to wait until when you get home or something to call that person. That's how we lived. I hike a lot, and I get so many people that will say, shockingly, every time I say that I don't. carry a cell phone to hike. The only time I take it is more recently to take pictures for, marketing stuff, but I never ever travel with a cell phone on hiking trails. And people go, that's so dangerous. You should have your phone. What if something happens? And I think to myself, once upon a time,
Mhm.
they were always
That was
hiking.
life. Yeah.
That was life. And guess what? They were more in tune with
Mhm.
nature. They were more in tune with the sounds around them and all of those things, which is what I do. I mean, I'm aware of what's going on. I know creature sounds. I know whatever rustling in the bushes. You're tuned in. Another thing that I was explaining to somebody is that you also learn that to trust nature.
Yeah.
Nature recognizes that you're there. And that's what I have to say. I go, you know what? I trust you. I'm here. And and this is funny, and maybe for some people it won't be when I say it, but because I'm like, okay, I trust being out here. I'm part of all of this. And of course, you're not getting ridiculous, but you're aware, you're tuned in, you're dialed in. So you're paying attention to, maybe I don't want to go left today. Maybe I want to go right on this trail. You're just in sync. And I did say to somebody the other day, so since I'm that trusting, okay, so if a tiger came out, there's no tigers around here in LA, but if whatever it is came out, I'm trusting that that moment was supposed to be. That's just how I've gotten. I'm like, I am trusting every moment of my footsteps moving through on this path because I am listening. I'm listening in here. I'm not really here, but I'm listening in here, and I'm feeling what not to do right now. And that's really how we were all. That's how we were living. You see so many of the tribes, the cultures throughout so many societies on the planet. We know of the Native American culture just because we've seen it on the big screen and television. Being able to put their ear to the ground, to hear footsteps, coming for miles away. To me, that's our natural internal system, because we are really networked into everything, into all of this. And so that's where I am with it. So cell phones are become a false sense of security. They're great. I like my cell phone. But when I go to walk on the beach, when I go to walk in nature, when I go to be aligned and be at peace with myself and balance myself away from all this computer and technology, I don't want to hear I don't want to hear a conversation with somebody. I don't want somebody calling me to tell me something. There is nothing to me in that moment that is that important that I need to know right then. And that's how I feel.
Mm.
So I don't take my phone with me. You have to have that moment of interrupting all of these frequencies and all the static electricity that you're engaged in and exposed to all day long.
Being also connected to nature, like you were mentioning, um, like you said that you don't get silly, that you tell, okay, nature, I know that I'm here, without getting silly. But really, there's electromagnetic fields around our body, around every other living being, plants, most likely around rocks and whatever, and around the ground, etc. And they interact between each
Mhm.
other. And like you said, that is like, I think you hit it in the head. The main piece of what I'm now understanding we've lost is that connection to the
Mhm.
heart and to the knowing of the heart. I think you called it the knowing, and I was going to ask you if that was for you the heart. I think it might be, because you're in nature and you're not, like you said, you're not in here, you're
Mhm.
here. You're feeling how you feel, and if something feels weird, it's because I would say it's because your electromagnetic field is interacting with another
Mhm.
part or with another field, and there's perhaps quantum stuff that gets even more complex.
Mhm.
But those fields might be interacting and generating a kind of this harmonious something
Mm-hmm.
which feels disharmonious within you,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives you kind of a clue, and you can develop those skills, just like we lost them because we turned our backs perhaps on nature and started living in
Well, we have a
cities. And
lot of portable things, particularly now. We have a lot of external things that we use as our
right.
navigation system, and just kind of abandon more the internal system.
Mm,
It's like, even birds, they have what is it, magnetite, they
yeah.
have that magnet, and so do we in our bodies too, but they use that as their
Mm,
navigation system. So everything is designed with a navigation system, and not only that, we are all connected to the great network. We are all connected. It's that simple. Like you said, everything has a frequency. Everything measures a frequency, and so we can pick up. We we see it. Even if somebody doesn't believe in any of this, they're listening and they're like, oh, that same
mhm,
person will say, I had a bad feeling when that person showed up, or they'll say, I didn't like that the vibe I was getting from that person. So you see, we're picking it up. Or somebody walks into um, a room, or somebody's staring at you, and you turn around, because you feel it. You turn around and you look. So you see that we know this. We are
mm,
doing this. We are picking up these feels. We are interacting with all these different feels all the time, and that's the more we can bring ourselves back to that realization and that understanding, and start to really kind of observe it more, is the I think the simpler life starts to get, because we start making different choices. Our choices is generally what gets us into the hot water, the challenges that we
mm,
get into. It's our choices. And a lot of times we make choices based on survival, based on fear, based on a fear of the unknown. So
yeah.
we try to control it with our minuscule
Mm,
solutions, and that's what happens. And then it ends up backfiring. Again, I'm familiar
mm,
because I have done that, controlling stuff with minuscule, little safety things, and then it lasts for a little while. Then the lid blows off, and then now it's bigger. So now I have a bigger problem to deal with, because I was trying to protect myself, my survival self. I need to know how this is going to work.
mm,
So I'm going to force this option over here because it makes me feel better.
mm.
We all know how that ends.
Yeah, as long as it flows with the universe, keep doing it because you're gonna have a great time. But if it's not in tune with whatever the frequency, or with whatever the will of the moment is, then you're just gonna be running against resistance, and even complications to your happiness in life. For
You run
close,
towards the thing you fear. That's what happens. You actually end up running towards the thing you're running from.
right? Yeah, yeah, that's very powerful. I was thinking if for closing we could go over a couple ideas that we could give people around how to install new programs, given all of the, the the landmarks we've been setting along this conversation, which has been awesome. By the way, I
Mhm,
was
mhm.
I knew it was gonna be. I had
Yeah, because you're
a
awesome.
thank you. No, it's because you are awesome, and because I'm awesome, and the audience that's listening to this is
The
probably
audience is
awesome
awesome. When
too.
the
Yeah,
host is awesome, it really, really helps. So
yeah. I
you're
think
open. Oh yeah, you're open and engaging, and that helps to really allow things to flow, because you're open and you have a really great understanding, and that to me really frees that up for information to come out. Yeah.
well, thank you for mentioning it. I I I really feel like the last couple of days, some of this knowledge and knowing has been like clicking for me. So it
Mhm.
was like very perfect that we got together today. Yesterday we had a mishap that we were that was incredible also
It was
how connected.
perfect.
At the moment I sent you the email telling you I couldn't yesterday, I looked, and behind me on the email received list, 1 minute ago, I had your email saying that you weren't able to make it either. And
And
we,
that's what happened to me. And I thought, oh, did he respond already? Because when I hit send as well, and then once I hit send, and then I look, and then I saw an email from you, I was like, wow, that was pretty quick. And then I saw that you were saying, I can't do it today. And I was like, it doesn't get any more synced than that. That
yeah,
was really synced in. Yeah.
definitely. And many of the ideas that you shared and that you've been sharing, I've had kind of an intuitive grasp, but hadn't completely clicked in, like I was saying, until the last few days. Um, so yeah, this was beautiful. So I was thinking, yeah, maybe we could go into a couple of ideas as to how to install new programs, how to uh, um, incarnate this metaphysics, these ideas, and try them out and see if
Mhm.
they work for people. Because when you start to try them out and they start working for you, that's when most things start to click, I think.
Right, right, absolutely. I again, whenever I get asked questions like this, I always start with a person has to have an honest curiosity. Like you have to come to the table with like an honest desire to change life, to change your life. That's the permission that you're giving. That's you saying this is what I want, and I really do want this. Not wishy-washy, because if it's wishy-washy, it then you go, oh, I tried it, it didn't work. No, because you weren't committed to it. But, when you commit in that manner, now boom, now you're ready. And then that's where you take that truthful observation of self. What are the things right now in your life that maybe you're not that are uncomfortable? What are the things in your life that are a pattern that of discomfort, of challenges? A lot of times we have a couple things in our lives that have been like that sometimes our whole life. What are some of these things that you have been dealing with? And that to me is a good part of where you begin, is to take an honest
Mhm.
look or an honest assessment about where you are right now in your life, and then go from there with what would I like to change. If I could change anything, what kind of change would I like? And it's more so, how would I like to feel? Because in the end, it's the feeling. It's like, how would I like to feel? It's not so much, oh, and then this thing happened and then that thing happens. It's more like, how would I like to feel? And then you close your eyes and just allow yourself to move into a feeling that is different than the discomfort that you were feeling. And then you just sit with that. And then if you can sit with that other feeling, just sink into it. And then you say, yes, that's what I want to feel. Okay, I'm ready to feel that. And you don't like try to make things twisted and make things happen. You have given your permission for that change to happen, for that to happen, to come about in your space, to make that situation change. And then you start to pay attention to, oh, well, maybe I feel like I need to do this thing. Maybe I should do that. And then you start to feel those things and you start to trust that. You kind of start to trust this process. So to me, that's where you have to begin. You begin with that, and just be with it. Stick with that. Don't come at anything with a feeling of it's failing, or that stuff never works for me, because people do that. That never works for me. Well, that's the law you've created right there. It is not going to work for you because you've already said it never works for you.
Hmm.
So what else can the universe deliver up to you? What else can your own expensive self deliver up to you but what you have said? You have said it never works for you. That's the law, final law. So it's not going to work. So now you hear yourself and you go, oh, okay, all right, I'm changing that. That is not my, there is no longer my story. I am completely open to change, and I give myself permission to change. And I am trusting the process by which that change will take place. If you can sit and say those words to yourself and feel them, not topical, not because I said them and you're saying them topically, but you have to feel them. You have to anchor them. And sometimes for some people, it may take them several times of saying that for it to really feel a knowing, really start to feel it as a knowing. And then you're ready to allow, a different change of life. And you do it with everything in your space. Yeah,
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
also opportunities start showing up for you
Oh,
when you open in that way, you know?
yeah, permission to allow opportunities to come. You don't give
Mm,
permission, opportunities don't come. And if the opportunities come, you don't even recognize, you don't even notice them. You're not going to notice them because they are not part of your law. If the opportunities come and you're not ready, your law is things don't never work for you, or you always get the end of the stick, or you're always, what is it? You're always doing for others and nobody does for you. Those are all rules that you create. So obviously, if somebody tries to do something for you, you may find a way to reject it or
yeah.
not accept it because it's not going to allow you to keep running that story. So those are things that we have to look at, as to the sabotaging process that we put ourselves through. Yeah.
Yes. Um, well, Sonia Barret, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I have one more thing I would like to share. I would like to close with a quote that I was looking for right here.
Hmm.
Uh, you probably know him, Terence McKenna. You've heard about him.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I listened to him for many, many, many hours during my lowest times. It really helped me. And the one most important quote that I feel I received from him, let me see if I can read it complete. It's here. It's like something that totally like from his more feminine side. You know, he was very masculine in that, all the
Hmm.
dissecting and breaking things apart into little pieces and explaining
Hmm.
them. And this one is more like a more kind of Buddhist type of quote. So I'm going to read it. I hope you like it.
Hmm.
He said, nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under it. It will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done, by hurling yourself into the abyss and
Hmm.
discovering it's a feather bed.
Oh, love
Huh?
that. I
Wow, beautiful.
love it because it's so true. That's exactly, it is so true.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, you hurl yourself into the abyss and only to find out it's really a feather bed. Why is that? Because there was really nothing there. Your stories really have no substance whatsoever, only what we give it. So yeah, I love
yeah.
that quote. Perfect quote. Yeah.
Nature loves courage. So, with
Yes.
that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Um, I'm still learning to be a host and take into consideration that there's people that aren't listening to it right now when we're recording it, but they
Right.
are listening to it right now when they're listening to it. So, thank you for being there. Thank you for joining us, for listening to this conversation. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and all the beautiful things. You can reach me by looking at the description in the channel, and there you can find some links to find me. And Sonia, please let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
My website is therealsoniabarrett.com. That's my main website, therealsoniabarrett.com. And I do a free workshop teleconference. It's called Reality Wednesday, once a month. It's the first Wednesday of every month. It's called
Mhm.
Reality Wednesdays. And so you can get on the website and sign up and be part of that. It's amazing. You can listen to some of the previous um, talks as well, and everybody, people, get to share and answer, and I answer, and then they ask questions or share and all of that. And everything else you need to know about me is there, the radio show that I do, and my store that's on the site that has pretty much all the workshops I've ever done over the
Mm.
last, I don't know how many years, over 10 years. You can go to the store and get that. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's about it for now. Oh, and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, and so on.
Oh yeah, I will be sharing most of no all of those links on the in the description, so everybody can check them out also from there. So thank you so much, Sonia. This must have been beautiful. I hope we can get together again to chat a little bit more.
Oh, thank you so much. You're awesome.
Thank you. You're awesome too.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
bye bye.
Bye.